My name is Rochelle. I'm 34 years old and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. 4 months ago, a phone call at 2:47 in the morning shattered every illusion I had about my marriage. Everything I believed about the man sleeping beside me for 9 years. When I picked up my husband's phone that night, a woman's voice cut through the darkness with 6 words that froze my blood. She said, "Let me speak to my husband." And what unfolded after that moment, I still cannot fathom how I missed every single warning sign. I still cannot comprehend how blind, how foolish, how utterly naive I had been. But I'm jumping ahead. Let me rewind to the beginning, because you need to understand how flawless I believed my existence was before everything imploded. Before I reveal how I exposed my husband's secret existence, how I uncovered a maze of deception so intricate it still churns my stomach, I need you to do something. Go ahead and smash that like button immediately. Subscribe to this channel if this is your first time here, and activate those notifications so you catch every single one of my stories. Drop a comment below telling me your location and your current time. I want to know who's riding alongside me through this journey. Believe me, you'll need to watch until the absolute end of this story, because what I uncovered about my husband transcends anything your imagination could conjure. And the payback I delivered, oh, sweet Jesus, it was poetry. So settle in, pour yourself something strong, and let me walk you through the night my entire universe collapsed. Let me introduce you to Devin Mitchell, my husband, the father of my two precious children, the man I envisioned growing elderly beside. We crossed paths 10 years ago at a charity gala here in Phoenix. He was gorgeous. I won't sugarcoat it. 6'2", athletic build, $1 million smile. And he carried this magnetic energy that pulled me straight in. He approached me like he already knew I'd be wearing his ring someday. And foolish, naive me, I swallowed every syllable that escaped his deceitful lips. We courted for 14 months before he proposed. It was this elaborate romantic production at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. He dropped to one knee, produced this stunning diamond, and asked me to share eternity with him. I screamed yes before his sentence even finished. I was drowning in love, so completely, recklessly, hopelessly intoxicated by this man. We married 9 years ago in this breathtaking ceremony. My entire family attended. His entire family showed up. And I remember staring at him at that altar, convinced I was the most fortunate woman breathing. I thought the universe had blessed me with perfection incarnate, a man who would cherish me, defend me, honor me, and remain devoted to me until death separated us. That's what he vowed. That's what he stood there and swore before God, before our families, before me. And I absorbed every single promise like gospel truth. For 9 years, I believed I was living the fantasy. We purchased this gorgeous house in a premium neighborhood. We created 2 children together. My daughter, Isabella, just turned 7, and my son, Devin JRB, is 5 years old. I named my son after his father, because I believed his father represented a man worthy of such honor. I believed his father exemplified the kind of man my son should emulate, should strive to become. Lord have mercy, I was spectacularly stupid. Devin held an impressive position as a senior account executive for a fintech startup, or so he claimed. He traveled extensively for business, sometimes 3 or 4 times monthly. But he consistently returned bearing gifts for me and our children. He always called to wish us good night. He always expressed his love and eagerness to return home to his family. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He had never provided any reason for suspicion. Our neighbors constantly reminded me how blessed I was. My own mother used to say she wished my father possessed half the husband qualities Devin demonstrated. My girlfriends envied me openly. They would vent about their disappointing men, while I sat there feeling grateful because my husband wasn't like theirs. My husband was exceptional. My husband was one of the rare good ones. He would surprise me with roses randomly. He would orchestrate date nights and shock me with designer jewelry on our anniversary. He excelled with the children, constantly engaging them, assisting with homework, coaching Devon JRB's soccer team when he wasn't traveling. He accompanied us to church every Sunday, held my hand during worship, and responded amen at all the appropriate moments. Everyone perceived him as flawless. I perceived him as flawless. But you know that old saying, when something appears too perfect to be authentic, it typically is. I just never imagined that principle would apply to my own marriage. I never conceived the man sharing my bed nightly was inhabiting an entirely separate existence when he walked out our door. Reflecting now, I can identify the warning signs. I can spot all the crimson flags I dismissed, all the alarm bells I rationalized away because I refused to accept my perfect husband could be anything less than perfect. But during that time, I was sightless. I was so entrapped in the fairy tale that I rejected the reality staring me directly in the face. It commenced approximately 18 months ago. Tiny things initially, so microscopic I barely registered them. Devon started positioning his phone face down constantly. He claimed the screen illumination distracted him. He modified all his passwords, and when I questioned why, he explained his company mandated updates for security protocols. Logical, correct? Why would I challenge that? Then the business trips started multiplying. He used to travel perhaps twice monthly, but suddenly it became weekly. Sometimes he'd vanish for 4 or 5 days consecutively. He stated the company was expanding aggressively, that he was being evaluated for a vice president position, that he needed to invest the extra effort presently so we could enjoy the benefits later. And stupid, gullible me, I supported him wholeheartedly. I told him I was proud of him. I maintained the household and the children during his absences, and I never complained once because I believed he was sacrificing everything for us. The late arrivals started too. He'd return from the office at 10-11, sometimes midnight. He cited deadlines, presentations, proposals requiring completion. He'd arrive home depleted, consume the dinner I kept heated for him, and collapse on the sofa. I felt sympathy for him. I thought my poor husband was destroying himself for our family's benefit. I would massage his neck and tell him not to overwork himself, and he would kiss my temple and promise it would all prove worthwhile soon. My friends began making observations. My girl Monica said it seemed suspicious how frequently he traveled. My sister Vanessa said she didn't trust any man absent that consistently, but I defended him fiercely. I grew angry at them for even insinuating something was wrong. I told them they were merely jealous because their relationships weren't as solid as mine. I told them Devon loved me and would never commit any action to harm me. I alienated the people attempting to warn me because I refused to hear the truth. Additional signs appeared too. He started frequenting the gym more intensely, achieving better physical condition than he'd maintained in years. He purchased new cologne, upgraded his wardrobe, started caring excessively about his appearance. I thought he was simply prioritizing his health. I thought perhaps he was attempting to look attractive for me. I was flattered. I didn't realize he was grooming himself for someone else. Sometimes his narratives didn't align properly. He'd mention a steakhouse in a city he supposedly hadn't visited. He'd forget specifics about trips he'd described to me. Once he claimed he was in Seattle for a tech summit, but when I called the conference hotel to leave him a message, they reported no guest by that name registered. When I asked him about it, he said the reservation must have been registered under the corporate account. I believed him. I always believed him. The intimacy between us transformed too. We went from making love 3 or 4 times weekly to barely twice monthly. He always had justifications. He was exhausted. He was stressed. He had projects consuming his mind. I started questioning if something was deficient with me. I purchased expensive lingerie, attempted to add excitement, but nothing worked. He'd just pat my hand and tell me he loved me, but he was drained. Meanwhile, I now know precisely where all his energy was being directed. There was one night, maybe 8 months ago, that should have been my awakening. It was approximately 1:30 in the morning, and I woke because I reached for Devon, and he wasn't present. I discovered him in the kitchen on his phone texting someone. When I asked who he was communicating with at that hour, he practically jumped from his skin. He said it was his colleague, about an urgent client emergency. He pocketed the phone immediately and returned to bed. I should have pressed harder. I should have demanded to examine that phone, but I trusted him. I trusted my husband. And that trust was the most catastrophic mistake of my existence. Now let me describe the night everything changed. The night my entire universe came crashing down around me. I remember it with crystal clarity. I will remember it for the remainder of my life. It was a Wednesday night. The children were sleeping, and Devin had arrived home late from the office as usual. He showered and came to bed around 11:30. He fell asleep almost instantly, which wasn't unusual. The man was perpetually exhausted lately. I remember lying there beside him, watching him sleep, thinking about how deeply I loved him, thinking about how fortunate I was. If I had known then what I know now, I would have been packing his belongings instead of counting my blessings. Around 2:47 in the morning, I woke to a sound. It took me a moment to realize it was Devin's phone vibrating on the nightstand. It wasn't just one notification. It kept buzzing repeatedly, like someone was calling persistently. Devin didn't even stir. That man could sleep through a Category 5 hurricane. I should have just ignored it. I should have rolled over and let it go to voicemail. But something compelled me to pick up that phone. Call it intuition. Call it God trying to reveal the truth. Call it whatever you want. Something made me reach over and grab that phone. The screen displayed an unknown number. Normally, I would never answer my husband's phone in the middle of the night. That wasn't something I ever did. But that night, something felt different. Something in my gut was screaming at me to answer, so I did. I pressed the phone to my ear and said hello. There was a pause on the other end, and then a woman's voice came through. She sounded furious, aggressive, like she was preparing for battle, and the first words from her mouth made my heart stop. Let me speak to my husband. I remember blinking in the darkness, attempting to process what I just heard. I thought she had the wrong number. I thought there had been some kind of mistake. So I said, "I'm sorry, I think you've dialed incorrectly," and this woman laughed. She actually laughed at me. And then she said something that altered my life forever. "No, I haven't dialed incorrectly. I'm looking for Devin Mitchell, and I'm his wife." The room started spinning violently. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My husband was lying right beside me, and there was a woman on the phone claiming to be his wife. This had to be a joke. This had to be some kind of sick prank. But something in her voice told me she was deadly serious. I got out of bed and walked into the hallway because I didn't want to wake Devin. Not yet. Not until I understood what was happening. My hands were shaking so severely I almost dropped the phone. "What did you just say?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said. "My name is Carmen Mitchell. I've been married to Devin for years. We have a 3-year-old son together, and I just found your number in his phone saved as R with a heart emoji. So who the hell are you?" I had to lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. This couldn't be real. This could not be happening. I had been married to Devin for 9 years. We had 2 children together. Our wedding photos were displayed on the walls of this very house. And now some woman was telling me she was his wife too. "I'm Rochelle," I finally managed to say. "I've been married to Devin for 9 years. We have 2 kids. I don't know who you are or what kind of game you're playing, but you need to stop." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Carmen spoke again, her voice had changed. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. Confusion, pain, the same things I was feeling. 9 years, she said quietly. "That's not possible. I've been with Devin for 6 years. We got married 4 years ago. He told me he had never been married before. He told me I was his first wife, and that's when it hit me. That's when I realized this woman wasn't lying. She wasn't playing games. She was just as much a victim as I was. My husband, the man I had loved and trusted for almost a decade, had been living a double life. He had another wife, another family, another whole existence that I knew nothing about, I slid down the wall and sat on the floor of my hallway, tears streaming down my face. This woman, this stranger, was crying too. I could hear her trying to hold it together on the other end of the line. Two women, hundreds of miles apart, both married to the same man, both discovering the truth at 2:47 in the morning on a random Wednesday. Where are you? I asked her. Houston, she said. He told me he travels to Phoenix for business, and suddenly it all made sense. All those business trips, all those late nights, all those times he was supposedly working so hard for our family. He wasn't working. He was with her. He was with his other wife and his other child in Houston, Texas, living a whole other life, like we didn't even exist. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake him up right then and there and demand answers. But Carmen said something that made me stop. Wait, she said. Before you confront him, let's talk. Let's compare everything. Because if he's been lying to both of us this whole time, I want to know everything. I want to know every single lie he's told, and then I want to make him pay. Something in her voice resonated with me. This woman wasn't my enemy. She was my ally. We had both been betrayed by the same man, and instead of fighting each other, we could fight him together. So I agreed. I crept back into the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and went downstairs to the living room. Devin didn't move a muscle. He had no idea that his whole empire of lies was about to come crumbling down. Carmen and I talked until the sun came up. We compared everything. Every lie, every excuse, every trip and late night and suspicious behavior. It was like assembling the pieces of a puzzle that finally made sense. She told me her story first. She met Devin 6 years ago at a tech conference in Houston. He told her he was a senior account executive for a fintech startup, which was partially true. What he didn't tell her was that he already had a wife and 2 kids in Phoenix. He pursued her relentlessly, charmed her, made her feel like she was the only woman in the universe. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what he did to me. They dated for 2 years before he proposed. She said it was romantic, a surprise weekend trip to Cabo, where he got down on one knee on the beach at sunset. She had no idea. He'd already done the same thing for me years before. They got married in an intimate ceremony, just family and close friends. She wore an ivory gown and thought she was starting her happily ever after, just like I did. Then she got pregnant. She said Devin was ecstatic, so thrilled to be a father. Except he already was a father. He already had 2 kids that he went home to when he wasn't with her. But she didn't know that. She thought she was giving him his first child. Their son is named Devin JRB, too. Can you even believe that? This man had 2 sons, both named after him, with 2 different women who didn't know each other existed. The audacity, the sheer nerve of this man to name both his sons identically. Like we were interchangeable. Like our families were replaceable parts in his machine. Carmen said his schedule with her mirrored what I experienced. He would be home for several days, then have to travel for business. He missed birthdays, anniversaries, important milestones because he was supposedly on business trips. But now we knew the reality. When he wasn't with her, he was with me. When he wasn't with me, he was with her. He had been juggling us both for years, and neither of us had any clue. The more we talked, the more deceptions we uncovered. His phone habits, his excuses, his schedule, that never quite made sense. She had noticed the same patterns I had. She had asked the same questions and gotten the same explanations. He had perfected his lies over years of practice, feeding us both the same stories with slight variations. But here's where it got even worse. As we were comparing notes, Carmen mentioned something that made my stomach drop. She said sometimes Devin would get text messages late at night that he claimed were from colleagues. But she had caught a glimpse of one once, and it was from someone named Amber. When she asked him about it, he said Amber was just a business associate. Nothing to worry about, Amber, I said. He's never mentioned an Amber to me. We both went silent, the same horrifying thought crossing our minds simultaneously. What if it wasn't just the 2 of us? What if there was another woman out there? Maybe even more than one? Carmen did some investigating on his phone records that she had access to through their shared cellular plan. What she discovered made us both physically ill. There was a third woman, a woman named Amber, who lived in Dallas, Texas. They weren't married, as far as we could determine, but they had been seeing each other for at least 18 months. She was probably sitting at home right now thinking she had a committed boyfriend who loved her, not knowing that he had 2 whole wives and families, 3 women, 3 cities, 3 separate lives. This man had been operating a whole enterprise and none of us had any clue. He had juggled all of us flawlessly, kept us all in the darkness, made us all believe we were the only one. The level of deception was almost impressive. Almost. If it wasn't so absolutely devastating. By the time the sun came up, I had cried more tears than I thought physically possible. But something else had happened too. The sadness was starting to transform into anger, into rage, into a burning desire to make this man pay for what he had done to me, to Carmen, to our children, to every woman he had ever deceived. Carmen felt the same way. We made a pact that morning. We weren't going to confront him separately. We weren't going to fall apart and let him manipulate us or talk his way out of this. We were going to gather evidence, build our case, and then take him down together. We were going to make sure he lost everything, just like he had made us lose our sense of security, our trust, our belief in love. I'll be in touch, Carmen said before we disconnected. Don't let him know anything has changed. Act normal. Pretend everything is fine. Can you do that? I looked at the bedroom door where my husband was still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his lies had finally caught up with him. Could I pretend? Could I look at this man, sleep next to this man, let him kiss me goodbye like everything was normal? Yes, I said. I can do that for as long as it takes. The next several weeks were the hardest of my life. I had to look Devin in the face every single day and act like nothing was wrong. I had to let him kiss me goodbye in the morning, let him tell me he loved me at night, let him play with our children like he was some kind of devoted family man. Every moment was torture. Every touch made my skin crawl. But I had to keep it together. I had to stay calm and collect as much evidence as possible. I started paying attention to things I had ignored before. When he said he was going on a business trip, I noted the dates and where he claimed he was going. Then I would check with Carmen to see if he was actually in Houston with her during those times. 8 times out of 10, the math didn't add up. He had been lying so extensively and for so long that his stories had become a tangled web of contradictions. I went through our bank statements and credit card records. What I found made my blood boil. He had been spending money on 2 households, 2 sets of bills, to families. There were charges at restaurants in Houston I had never heard of, purchases at stores in Dallas where Amber lived, hotel rooms on nights. He told me he was sleeping at the airport. The evidence was accumulating, and it painted a picture of a man who had been betraying me for years without a single ounce of remorse. Carmen was doing the same thing on her end. She found credit card charges for flowers and jewelry that she had never received, charges at restaurants in Phoenix on nights he was supposedly traveling for business. He had been spending money on me while lying to her, and spending money on her while lying to me. And God knows how much he was spending on Amber. We also discovered something that made the whole situation even more infuriating. Devin had been using company resources to fund his double life. He was filing fraudulent expense reports, inflating his travel reimbursements, using his corporate card for personal trips to see his other families. Not only was he a cheater and a liar, but he was also embezzling. He was stealing from his company to finance his web of deception. I took screenshots of everything: bank statements, credit card charges, text messages, calendar entries that didn't match his stories. I saved it all to a secret folder on my cloud drive, backed it up to an external hard drive, and even printed physical copies that I hid at my sister's house. I wasn't taking any chances. This man had already proven he was capable of elaborate deception, and I wasn't going to let him destroy the evidence if he discovered what I was doing, Every night I would lie in bed next to him and replay the lies in my head. I would think about all the times he said he loved me, all the times he promised to be faithful, all the times he made me believe I was his one and only. And then I would think about Carmen lying in her bed in Houston, probably doing the same thing, and Amber in Dallas, completely unaware that her boyfriend had two whole families. The rage kept me awake most nights, but it also kept me focused. I was going to destroy this man. I was going to take everything from him, just like he had taken everything from me. The hardest part was keeping it from my kids. They didn't know anything was wrong. They still ran to their daddy when he came home, still believed he was perfect. I had to watch my babies love and trust a man who didn't deserve either. But I couldn't tell them the truth. Not yet. They were too young to understand, and I wasn't going to let Devin's sins destroy their innocence before I had to. 4 weeks after that phone call, Carmen and I decided it was time. We had gathered enough evidence to bury Devin 10 times over. We knew his schedule, his lies, his finances, everything. All that was left was the confrontation. We planned it meticulously. Carmen would fly into Phoenix on a Friday afternoon while Devin was supposedly at work. She would come straight to my house and we would wait for him together. He always came home around 7:30 on Fridays, thinking he had the whole weekend with his Phoenix family before he'd make up some excuse to run off to Houston again. But this Friday would be different. This Friday, he would walk through that door and find both of his wives waiting for him. The day Carmen arrived, I was a nervous wreck. I had sent the kids to my sister's house for the weekend, telling her I needed some alone time with Devin. She was thrilled to take them, thinking she was helping us have a romantic weekend. If only she knew. When Carmen knocked on my door, I didn't know what to expect. Here was the other woman, the one my husband had been cheating on me with, standing on my doorstep. But the moment I saw her face, all of that melted away. She looked just as broken as I felt. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands were shaking. She wasn't my enemy. She was my sister in this nightmare. We embraced right there in the doorway. Two strangers bonded by the worst kind of betrayal. She came inside, looked around at the home I had built with Devin, at the family photos on the walls, at the evidence of a life she never knew existed. And I saw the pain in her eyes deepen. He has the same photos in our house, she said quietly. Family photos, pictures of him and me and our son, like we're his real family. We are both his real family, I said. That's the problem. We sat in the living room and went over the plan one more time. When Devin walked through that door, we wouldn't yell or scream. We would stay calm, present the evidence, and let him try to explain his way out of this. Not that any explanation could possibly be good enough. There was no excuse for what he had done, but I wanted to watch him try. I wanted to see him squirm and stutter, and realize that his lies had finally caught up with him. The hours crawled by. We watched the clock, checked our phones, jumped at every sound. Finally, at 7:35, we heard a car pull into the driveway. We heard the engine turn off. We heard footsteps coming up to the front door. We heard the key turn in the lock. The door opened, and Devin walked in. He was carrying takeout, probably Thai food from that place he knows I love. Thinking he was going to have a nice weekend with his wife, he called out, "Baby, I'm home. Where are you?" "In the living room," I answered, keeping my voice as normal as possible. He walked in with that smile on his face, the same smile that had fooled me for years. And then he saw Carmen sitting on the couch, and that smile vanished. His whole face changed. The color drained from his cheeks. The takeout bag slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. What, he started, looking back and forth between us. What is this? What's going on? I stood up slowly, never taking my eyes off him. Devin, I think you know Carmen, your other wife, the one you married 4 years ago, the mother of your other child. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. For once in his life, Devin Mitchell was speechless. The master manipulator, the smooth talker, the man who had an excuse for everything, couldn't find a single word to say. Carmen stood up too, Hi, husband, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Surprised to see me? Devin backed up against the wall, his hands raised like he was surrendering to police. Listen, he said. This isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Just let me explain. Oh, this is exactly what it looks like, I said. You have 2 wives, 2 families, 2 children named Devin JRB, and you've been lying to both of us for years. What is there to explain? He started stammering, attempting to come up with some excuse, some story that would make this acceptable. It's complicated, he said. My life, my situation. You don't understand. I love you both. I never meant to hurt anyone. You love us both, Carmen laughed, but there was no humor in it. You love us so much that you lied to our faces every single day. You love us so much that you made us think we were special when we were just options. That's not love, Devin. That's selfishness. That's manipulation. I had printed out all the evidence and put it in a binder on the coffee table. I picked it up and threw it at him. Papers flew everywhere. Bank statements, text messages, photos of his lies scattering across the floor. That's years of deception, I said. Credit card charges, phone records, flight itineraries. Every lie you told, we have proof of. You're not going to talk your way out of this one, Devin. The game is over. He looked down at the papers at his feet, and I saw something break in him. The mask he had worn for years finally cracked. His shoulders slumped, his head dropped, and for the first time since I had known him, Devin Mitchell looked like the pathetic, broken man he truly was. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to hurt you. Sorry? I felt the rage building in my chest. Sorry doesn't begin to cover this. You stole years of my life. You made me believe in a fantasy. You made our children believe in a fantasy. And you did the same thing to her. Sorry is the most insulting thing you could possibly say right now. What happened next was a blur of accusations and tears and finally the truth coming out. Devin tried everything. He tried to blame his upbringing, his fear of abandonment, his need to feel valued. He tried to turn us against each other, suggesting that if I had been more attentive, he wouldn't have needed Carmen. That made both of us see red. Don't you dare, Carmen said, pointing her finger in his face. Don't you dare try to blame us for your choices. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose to create this mess. This is all on you. He tried to beg. He got down on his knees and literally begged us to forgive him, to give him another chance, to let him make it right. It was pathetic. This man who had seemed so confident and in control was reduced to a sobbing mess on the floor of his own living room. And honestly, I felt nothing. Not pity, not satisfaction, just a cold emptiness where my love for him used to be. We also told him we knew about Amber. His head snapped up when we mentioned her name, and for a second, I saw real fear in his eyes. He didn't even try to deny it. He just closed his eyes and nodded, like he had known this moment was coming and had finally accepted his fate. How many others? Carmen demanded. Is it just the 3 of us? Or are there more women out there that we don't know about? Just you 3, he said. I swear, just you 3. But how could we believe anything he said? This man had lied to us for years. His word meant absolutely nothing. For all we knew, there were women in every city he had ever visited, all thinking they had a future with him, all being played just like us. After hours of confrontation, Carmen and I were emotionally drained. We told Devin to get out, to go sleep somewhere else, anywhere else, because he wasn't welcome in this house anymore. He tried to argue, tried to say it was his house too. But one look at our faces told him that wasn't a battle worth fighting. He grabbed a duffel bag, threw some clothes in it, and left with his tail between his legs. After he was gone, Carmen and I sat in silence for a long time. We had done it. We had confronted him together. But the victory felt hollow. We were both still left with the wreckage of our lives to sort through. What now? She asked. Now we take everything from him, I said. Everything he has, everything he loves. We make sure he never does this to anyone ever again. The next several months were all about the fallout. Carmen and I both filed for divorce within a week of the confrontation. We hired attorneys, aggressive ones, who specialized in cases like this. And Devin had a lot to answer for. The first thing we did was report his expense report fraud to his company. Turns out, embezzling from a fintech startup is a really effective way to lose your six-figure job. Devin was terminated within 10 days of our report. No severance package, no recommendations, nothing. Just a box of his belongings and a security escort out of the building. Then came the legal battles. Divorce proceedings into states, custody disputes, division of assets. It was complicated because Devin had technically been committing bigamy. His marriage to Carmen wasn't even legally valid because he was already married to me. She was devastated when she found out, but it actually worked in her favor legally. She could go after him for fraud for the years she had spent believing she was legally his wife. I got the house. I got primary custody of our kids. I got child support that would be garnished from whatever income he managed to scrape together after losing his career. The judge was not sympathetic to Devin, not even slightly. When all the evidence came out in court, even the judge looked at him with disgust. Carmen got a substantial settlement too. Alimony, child support, and a restraining order that kept Devin from coming within 500 feet of her or their son. She was rebuilding her life in Houston, and last I heard, she was doing remarkably well. As for Amber, the girlfriend in Dallas, we never reached out to her directly, but word travels fast, and I'm pretty sure she found out the truth eventually. I hope she did. I hope she realized what kind of man she was dealing with and ran as far away as possible. Devin tried everything to salvage the situation. He begged, he pleaded, he sent long emails and text messages swearing he was a changed man. He tried to get our families involved, convincing his mother to call me and plead his case. He even showed up at my sister's house once, trying to see the kids. That ended with my brother-in-law threatening to call the police if he didn't leave immediately. He also tried to threaten us. He said if we went through with the divorces, he would make our lives miserable. He would fight for full custody. He would drag our names through the mud. He would make sure everyone knew we were the villains in this story. But here's the thing about threats from a man who has lost everything. They're empty. Devin had no money, no job, no reputation left to leverage. His threats were just the desperate flailings of a man who had finally faced the consequences of his actions. The final court date was 7 months after that 247M phone call. I walked into that courtroom with my head held high and walked out a free woman, divorced from Devin Mitchell, free from his lies, his manipulation, his abuse. It was over. It's been a year now since that phone call changed my life. A year since I found out my husband was living a double life. A year since my whole world fell apart and I had to rebuild it from the ground up. And you know what? I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. My kids are thriving. They had a rough time at first, not understanding why Daddy wasn't living with us anymore. I had to explain it in terms they could understand, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But children are resilient. With therapy and support and a whole lot of love, they've adjusted. They still see Devin occasionally, supervised visits that I insisted on. But our home is peaceful now. There's no more lying, no more secrets, no more wondering why Daddy is always gone. I started my own business about 9 months ago, a marketing consultancy that's growing every month. For years, I had put my dreams on hold to support Devin's career. And now I'm finally pursuing my own. It feels incredible. It feels like I'm finally becoming the woman I was always meant to be. Carmen and I still talk regularly. Can you believe that? The other woman, the one I was supposed to hate, has become one of my closest friends. We went through something together that very few people could understand. That kind of experience bonds you in a way that's hard to explain. She's dating now. Someone who treats her with respect. A man who only has one phone, one job, one city, one life. She deserves that happiness after everything Devin put her through. As for Devin, last I heard, He's living with his mother in a small apartment across town. No job, no family, no future. All those years he spent building his empire of lies, and now he has nothing to show for it. Sometimes I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. Then I remember the years of deception, the wasted time, the pain he caused. And that sympathy disappears real quick. He tries to reach out sometimes. Birthday cards for the kids, messages on social media that I never answer. He says he's changed. He's in therapy. He's working on himself. Maybe he is. I don't really care. That man is no longer my concern. My focus is on my children, my business, my future. He doesn't get any more of my energy. I'm not dating yet. I'm not ready. The trust issues run deep, and it's going to take time before I can open my heart to anyone again. But I'm working on it. I'm healing. And someday, when the time is right, I'll be ready to love again. I'll be ready to find someone who deserves my love and who will never make me question their loyalty. For now, I'm happy being on my own. I'm happy being a strong mother to my children, a successful businesswoman, a survivor. Because that's what I am. A survivor of betrayal, of lies, of a man who tried to break me. But I didn't break. I bent, I cracked, I almost shattered, but I did not break. And I never will. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, I want you to hear me. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong in your relationship, it probably is. Don't ignore the warning signs like I did. Don't let love blind you to the truth, because the truth always surfaces eventually. And when it does, you want to be prepared. I also want to say this. If you find out your partner is cheating, the other woman is not your enemy. More often than not, she's a victim too. She's been fed the same lies, sold the same dreams, hurt in the same ways. Instead of tearing each other down, we need to lift each other up. We need to turn our pain into power and direct it at the person who actually deserves it. And finally, I want you to know that you can survive this. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in the middle of it. I know the pain seems unbearable, and the betrayal seems unforgivable. But you are stronger than you know. You have the power to rebuild your life, to find happiness again, to become the best version of yourself. It won't happen overnight. It will be hard. It will hurt. And there will be days when you want to give up. But don't. Keep fighting. Keep pushing forward, because on the other side of this pain is a life that is entirely yours. Free from lies and manipulation and people who don't deserve you. I'm living proof of that. I'm Rochelle, 34 years old, and I survived my husband's double life. And now I'm thriving. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and show me some love. Subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss another story. I've got plenty more to share. Trust me. If you've ever been through something like this, if you've ever been cheated on or lied to or found out a terrible secret about someone you loved, drop your story in the comments. Let me know I'm not alone. And let me know you're not alone either. We're all in this together, supporting each other, lifting each other up. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for giving me a space to share my pain and my triumph. It means more than you know. Stay blessed, stay aware, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. Never let anyone make you question your worth. Never let anyone make you feel like you deserve anything less than complete honesty and faithful love. My name is Rochelle, and this was my story. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the truth always comes out. Always. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.